and I'm back with another video for Ophelia Talks. And today we're going to have a look at how we can save our work when we have noticed that we've done something wrong only after a few rounds. Or in fact here I have sewn in all the ends, so it would be really hard to start undoing it. So when you look at this square from a normal distance, you might think it's fine. But upon closer inspection, you might see that actually a couple of these clusters are not made up of 3 double crochets, but only 2. And here as well in the purple, yeah, there's a 2 as well. So I mentioned the other day that actually you can drop them in. You can add a stitch in and save your work. Now, to be honest, I personally wouldn't worry too much about it, because with clusters you're counting clusters instead of stitches, so it's still okay. This is quite obvious because of course I did 2 in a row and I did this on purpose for the video. But here, this one, you wouldn't notice this. Okay, so I am going to show you how to do it, but to be honest, if it's not too noticeable, I wouldn't worry too much about it. So I'm going to take a contrasting yarn. Let me just find one here. Okay, I'm going to take this green one and I'm going to add a stitch in here. I will then use the pink one to add the stitch as you would in the same color, okay? But I'm just doing this so you can see how to do it. So what you're going to do is start by making a slip knot, insert your hook, and you're going to pretend you're already crocheting. So you yarn over and you're going to go to the location where you should have gone. So I'm going to move this to the side a little bit. My stitch needs to be around there. So with my yarn yarned over ready for the double crochet, I am going to place one in the location where it should have been. There. Okay. Now you're going to say, yes, Anya, but you know, that's not how it works. In fact, it is. So we've placed the stitch there. I've cut off the yarn with a little bit of an end, taken the loop out, and now what we need to do, and I am not using my usual blunt darning needle, I am using a nice sharp one for precision sewing in. Okay, we are now going to sew in the stitch. Let me not get it twisted. Okay, like this, very carefully. So you're going to sew in the ends, and of course I'll show you in a moment how to do this in the same color, and then it won't be so blaringly obvious you have done this correction. Which end do I pull? There we go. Okay. And by making sure you are sewing in this stitch really nicely and really invisibly almost, going under these stitches here, you have now added a stitch. Do you see that? Okay, obviously this is quite obvious. So let me do this with the pink, because obviously that is what you're going to need to do. So start with doing your slip knot. Insert your hook and go and find where the stitch should have been positioned. Now here I did it behind almost, here I can do it in front. So move your stitches along a little bit, move these along a little bit as well, so free up the space for your stitch. Then you're going to place your stitch where it should have been. There, so you've done your stitch. Cut off the yarn, not too short, so you've got something to work with. make sure it's nice and tight. Then get your sharp needle so you can really do a precision sewing. And go where this stitch should have been coming from. There we go. And then slowly work it in. Voila. And now sew in your end here. Voila. Now this one. Onto your needle, and once again go into the location where it should have been going. And voila, we have added a stitch, we have sewn in the ends, and now you can't tell. See that we've done that. Let me do this again with the purple one, because I'm doing corrections now anyway. I might as well keep going. So here we are going to just make the space for the location of our stitch and then for the top of our stitch. Let me get the wisteria out here. And I'll show you in a moment how to do this for rows of double crochets as well. Okay. So let me make my slip stitch. Where are we? Here. So we've got our 2 stitches here. Yarn over, go around where you need to place that stitch. Make your double crochet. There we go. Cut off the yarn. Now sew in the ends. Pull out the loop, tighten it slightly so it's a nice stitch. And go where the stitch should have been coming from. There we go. And of course this is a corner, so you need to sew in around the corner. Voila. Then the other one. And this goes where the stitch should have been going. Voila, look at that. Now we have a cluster of 3. So while before we had a cluster of 2, we now have inserted a stitch and made up the clusters. So now, yes, of course, this is how we do it with clusters. But what if you've done this? So here I have a hole because I missed a stitch here. I noticed it when I came around again and I placed an extra stitch there. So I've got 2 stitches into this stitch, but of course that didn't solve my problem because now I have a hole. So again, we are going to do the same thing. So let me do it with a contrasting yarn first so that you see what I'm doing. I've got a second one here, so I've got 2 holes to do. So let's show you with a contrasting yarn. So you make your slip knot, you yarn over as if you were already crocheting, you go into the location where you should have been going, you make your little stitch and make it nice and tight so it doesn't sort of fall apart and there's not too much yarn. Cut off the yarn, and now you're going to be sewing in the ends. So using your darning needle, sharp one, you go into where the stitch should have been coming from. There we go. And then here we're going to take the other end and put it to where it should have been going to. Voila. And by doing it just like this first, before you go around and around, this way you can slightly adjust. And look, I filled in the hole. Now, of course, it's blaringly obvious here, but let's just do it in the green, and then I will, it will just disappear into everything there. So let's make our slip knot, insert your hook. I mean, this is a good little trick to have up your sleeve. So you yarn over, go into the V where you should have been going, do your stitch, cut off the yarn, pull it through, tighten it slightly, darning needle, and you go where it should have been coming from. So sort of along the tops of those stitches. I mean, I'm going to mess it up completely now with that pink in there. Never mind. So carefully pull it. Then the other side. I mean, obviously I'm just going straight ahead now. So that's what you do when you're sort of doing this to start with. Then go back to these ends and sew them in properly so they're not going to come undone. But I'm just showing you, the basics of it here. You will have to do a better sewing in job than what I'm doing, but it's just to show you that it can be done. There we go. Look at that. It's in. And of course I did notice it in the next row, so I did put an extra stitch there to make up the numbers. But of course, if you haven't done that and you've missed out numbers, then you might need to enlarge again in the next row. Or you might just have to consider, redoing the whole thing, because of course, if you're losing stitches, that's when it becomes problematic. But sometimes you can save your work by doing this. Certainly when it's a granny square like this, where the amount of the actual stitches doesn't really involve the size or the counting of your piece, but it's the clusters, so you're counting the clusters. But even so, it's nice to see that all the clusters have the same size. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope you will try to do this next time. You notice that you've missed out a stitch, that you've only got a cluster of 2. You can now put it in and it's not visible at all where you have done that. So I hope this helps you. I hope you will try it out. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.